Dr. Tam. And what I'm wondering is there any way for single people hoping to have sex this summer to do so safely?
Don't date if you're sick. I think that would be important to protect everyone. And I'm not a dating expert, but let's just say, just to be sensible, maybe start virtually. Of course, everyone knows COVID-19 is spread by respiratory droplets. So if you were, kissing someone, of course, this is a potential route of transmission through which you're now in a social contract, in a social bubble, for which that is, to me, I think, something to be taken seriously.
Don't date if you're sick. Take precautions when being promiscuous. And for the rest of you just trying to live your lives, you get to sit inside your deranged curling ring in your city park, and whatever you do, for the love of God, don't go to the beach for some vitamin D if you're feeling perfectly okay, because apparently that's the worst part of humanity. Got it. Thanks, government, for the official sex life advice. There's not a single part of our lives, right down to our private, intimate relations, that they won't get involved in. And all for the sake of stopping the coronavirus. And those sorts of ridiculous questions that literally no one wants answers to are coming from the official, government-approved journalists, all while journalists like Kian Bexty or David Menzies, guys who want to ask real questions like why Dr. Theresa Tam, Canada's chief public health officer, still works for the China-centric, China sycophant World Health Organization, well, they aren't allowed into these press conferences. To support our fight for access to these press conferences, please go to letusreport.com. And while these health officials, like Dr. Theresa Tam, were telling us to stay away from wholesome things, like visiting our friends and families, burying our dearly departed, enjoying nature in our parks, and worshiping God in our church pews, or else we'd face the threat of hefty fines if we did partake in those little bits of normalcy, the same power-drunk health bureaucrats were giving advice and support on the best way to maintain an uncompromisingly hedonistic lifestyle and all the assorted exchanges of bodily fluids that go along with those behaviors. And I wish I was even remotely exaggerating, but it's been like this since the very beginning of the pandemic. Theresa Tam's advice on how to get frisky in the days of the Wuhan plague is actually pretty tame. Ridiculous, but tame, all things being relative. My friend and colleague Andrew Says had a really great little commentary on the City of Toronto's coronavirus sex advice on our Rebel Instagram account. You should really follow us there so you never miss a thing, because we do publish things exclusively there. But seriously, friends, look at this from the I swear to God legitimate City of Toronto website. Safe for sex during COVID-19. Honestly, I'm already uncomfortable and grossed out, and I can't believe I'm going to read these things in a YouTube video, but here we are. Let's read this together, and this is definitely not safe for work or for little ones, so chase them out, and also maybe consider deleting your browser history after this one. Consensual sex can be a way of dealing with anxiety or fulfilling and expressing our needs for intimacy. It can also be pleasurable and help pass the time when isolated indoors. But is it safe to have sex during COVID-19? Sexual contact with new partners or persons who are not in the same household is not recommended at this time. Safer sexual practices may prevent unintended pregnancy and STIs, but it will not prevent infection from COVID-19. COVID-19 can spread through close physical contact. Reduce the spread of COVID-19 and still enjoy sex. Your safest sex partner during the COVID-19 pandemic is yourself. Consensual sexting, virtual sex, video dating, or chat rooms. Have a consensual partner that you are living with in the same household. Do you mean marriage? If you usually meet sex partners online, are polyamorous with people who are not living in the same house, or make a living having sex, consider video dates, sexting, or chat rooms instead of meeting people in person. Protect yourself when having sex. Wash your hands before and after having sex, whether alone or with a partner. use condoms or a glove or condom cut open to reduce contact during oral or anal sex. Oh my God. Use condoms to protect from sexually transmitted infections. Clean sex toys and consider covering them with a condom. Do not share sex toys with others. Avoid kissing and having sex with a partner if feeling unwell or if you have COVID-19. Just avoid it. Avoid having sex if one partner has a health condition that can lead to more severe illnesses from COVID-19. Learn more about safer sex during COVID-19. And then, of course, there's a link to a PDF that I won't put anyone, including myself, through the suffering and discomfort of reading. Now, remember, friends, these government health bureaucrats sent the cops after pastors who held services with their flock safely in their own cars, but gave this advice freely. The police in Toronto ticketed a dad for rollerblading with his kids in a vacant parking lot because it was too dangerous to the health of the public. The city of Toronto painted idiotic social distancing circles in the park to keep people separated and sent cops to playgrounds to make sure kids weren't enjoying themselves. They ticketed the ice cream man and fenced off the cherry trees, all in the name of public health. But at the same time, they gave this advice on an official government website about the best way to hook up with strangers in a pandemic. You know, the important stuff. But friends, what about the prostitutes? This government sex advice is just for recreational sex. What about the professional kind? The city of Toronto may have forgotten about the prostitutes and Johns, but not the CBC. The CBC remembered them. I have a joke to make about prostitutes here, but I'll skip it for now. Just look at this. Stop enforcing sex work laws during COVID-19. Amnesty sex worker advocates say. Look, before I go on here, let me be perfectly clear. I don't want vulnerable women, often addicted, abused, and impoverished, in dangerous situations, putting their health and safety in jeopardy. That's why I'm against prostitution. No matter how much male feminists and creeps try to convince broken feminists that turning tricks in cars and filthy hotels for $20 a pop is empowerment rather than just regular old exploitation. Now let's take a look at that article. These groups have also been raising alarm about how the criminalization of sex workers has caused them to remain ineligible to receive emergency income supports, despite seeing their incomes disappear overnight when the pandemic hit. Middle-class Canadians who lost their jobs are getting access to income supports, but sex workers are being helped by charities giving out gift cards, she said. The $100 grocery cards that dictate where sex workers or people who don't have income should shop or get their groceries is an extremely paternalistic response to people who actually need income supports, Clement said. While they continue to push for more direct financial aid, Amnesty International Canada, the Canadian Alliance for Sex Work Law Reform, and other rights advocates say halting the enforcement of the laws that criminalize their lives would do much more. What's next? Are these people going to be wanting those CERB payments given directly to hookers engaged in illegal careers? Seems too crazy to be true, but this is Canada and nothing is too crazy to be true. Just look at this. Sex workers say they have been left out of Canada's COVID-19 response. From the article, there are provisions in the criminal code that make workers immune from prosecution, but not from arrest. That means sex work is still criminalized for everybody, she said. This is one of the biggest barriers for these workers in accessing the CERB. While they are eligible for this benefit, as is anyone who made at least $5,000 in the last year and has lost their income to COVID-19, many sex workers will simply not apply for it. The article then goes on to detail that some people on social assistance double dip with undeclared prostitution income, and they could lose their social assistance if they actually filed taxes for their actual incomes to qualify for CERB, so we should bend the rules for them. By the way, when did society change the word hooker and prostitute to sex worker? Is that just a way of normalizing and legitimizing the exploitation of women and girls under the guise of modern feminism? It's just work, but sex work, like working at McDonald's or, I don't know, carpentry? Anyway, the story goes on. The Johns are staying home, and the hookers don't want to go out and put themselves in danger of contracting the coronavirus, because the coronavirus has been hyped by the media into a much greater danger than AIDS, the alphabet soup of hepatitis, chlamydia, gonorrhea, syphilis, broken marriages, and serial killers with or without pig farms. However, of course, in the Socialist District 9 of Edmonton, Alberta, the prostitutes are getting their CERB payments as long as they worked in brothels before the coronavirus hit. This pandemic has revealed the government and all levels of government for their totalitarian tendencies and absolutely skewed priorities. During the pandemic, the government in some places wouldn't let you visit your grandma through her window or have a backyard barbecue, but you could riot, protest the police by the thousands, take a knee like the Prime Minister to acknowledge your white privilege in a large crowd, and, of course, engage in sex for cash. For Rebel News, I'm Sheila Gunn Reid. If you'd like to see real accountability journalism questions asked to these politicians and health officials, as opposed to, hey, Dr. Tam, how do you hook up with strangers during the pandemic? Well, why don't you consider supporting our legal challenge to get access to these press conferences, to see the full story, and to support our fight for press freedom? Please go to letusreport.com.